a bag of honey gold potatoes. Desperately searching for some soil and water. That's the first one. Kristen found these, by the way. There's some more potatoes. In fact, this one's actually growing some potatoes without soil.
It's crazy.
Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is DJ Rumple Silkspin, inventor of Funky Fly, Fresh, and Dope Sun. And this week we're working on an apartment that is, to put it nicely, problematic. Now we're going to get into this backstory because it's pretty interesting, if not a little sad or a little frustrating. But first, check out what we got to do. I cannot even begin to express how awesome that was. It was fun. Like, for the first time in a long time, cleaning this apartment was fun. And part of the reason was because the only place they had to put the dumpster was directly below the balcony, and it was a second floor apartment. So literally everything that we threw away in this house, we just got to chuck right over that balcony. And man, was that thing fun. So let's get into the story because I still don't know how I feel about this. So it was a young couple. A fresh out of high school, maybe just drinking age couple. And I know that because, one, I was told that, but two, there was a high school diploma stuck to the top of the refrigerator, and it was fairly recent. This was a couple who were renters turned squatters. So they lived there for a bit, and then they just stopped paying rent one day. And then it took another 8.5 months to get them out. They finally had to have the police remove them. Now, part of the thing that makes me a little iffy on this one is because the house was littered with booze bottles, like full bottles of wine and wine coolers and just a whole bunch of like gaming type stuff. I have decades of education in psychology, and I have years and hundreds of houses worth of experience on being able to put the puzzle pieces together. So in other words, I can walk into a house and almost immediately tell if this is a hoarding disorder problem. Is it extreme ADHD? Is it depression? Is it addiction? This was one of the very few houses, maybe only the second on the entire channel, where this one didn't feel like mental illness. This felt like two people who just didn't feel like taking their trash to the dumpster. To me, it felt like after they stopped paying rent, they didn't want to get stopped by the landlord, so they just stopped going outside and just stopped taking their trash to the dumpster. All of their food was door dashed. There were just tons of receipts and fast food everywhere. There was a kitty litter box that was overflowing and then poop all the way around that. And it weighed probably a good 30 to 40 pounds. And it looked to me like the cats were pooping elsewhere and they were just scooping it up and throwing it on the pile of cat litter, because I don't see a cat continuing to use the cat litter as it was. Strangely, there were no roaches and no mice. There were millions of fruit flies everywhere, but like there was no infestation. That blew my mind because this place was pretty bad. Now, I don't know these people. I've never met them. I could be totally wrong, and there could be severe mental illness and depression and all that stuff. It's just I don't get that vibe from this one. I've done too many of them, and I've been able to put two and two together correctly for so long. This reminds me more of just a fresh out of high school couple who's now in a situation where there's no one to force them to clean up. There's no parent yelling at them to get off your ass and take the trash to the curb. It just looks like they were kind of partying at night and just didn't give a crap that the house was in this condition. That said, I'm going to reiterate something that I said in another video. I'm not an animal activist. I'm not one of those people who's like, you're giving your pet tap water, you should be in jail. I've never been that way, never will be that way. But that being said, if you can't be bothered to even change your cat litter, that's neglect, and you should not own pets. You are no longer able to take care of pets. They also abandoned 2 live fish here. Fortunately, we were able to find them a much bigger home because the tank that they were in was only like a 5-gallon tank, and the types of fish that they had was a butterfly telescope, which is a form of fancy goldfish. The other one was a regular everyday goldfish. both of those fish get huge, and just 2 of those fish needed around a 55-gallon aquarium. So they're in a much, much better place now. On top of all that, before they left, they cranked the air up to 63 degrees. They opened up all the windows. They turned on all the fans, including the bathroom fan, all the lights, unplugged the fridge, and then there was a box fan face down on the ground running full blast. I don't know if this is controversial to say. I don't know if it's going to make some people mad. I have zero respect for or empathy for squatters, especially whenever you've got people who haven't paid rent in a year. It took the police to get them out. And then on top of that, they do all that before they exit. It's this really bizarre entitlement that basically says, oh, you're going to kick us out after a year of us freeloading off of your apartment? Well, we'll show you. We'll turn on all the lights and fans and open the windows and turn the air down real low. And it's like, all right, you've already screwed up the apartment. You've already been wasting these people's time and money and finances. And like, you don't need to one up them. You've already done that. Now, that said, I wish I could show you the worst room in the house, but for the first time ever, I've lost footage. I lost all the footage from the bedroom, which was so bad we had to use like a horse manure shovel to get everything up. And we took out probably 20 plus bags, full contractor bags of trash from just that room. Now, there is a before and after picture. I did get those, but losing that footage was frustrating because we put so much work into that one room and it took forever to get everything out of it. But anyway, maybe the universe just didn't want you guys to see that bedroom because the universe is a D-bag. One thing that really shocked me about this place was there was no damage. Normally, when you have this much trash sitting on every surface, there's rot and breakdown and damage and just things that need to be repaired by stripping out, say, countertops or flooring or whatever. This one either didn't sit long enough to do the damage, which I don't believe is the case, or 2, they just made this apartment out of really good industrial type stuff, which I do believe is the case. Now, the wood flooring in here is fake wood, I think. I don't know if it's LVP or just some sort of laminate type of stuff, but whatever they used was really good because it didn't destroy anything. That can't be said about the fridge. I don't believe the fridge is savable. I think that if we cleaned it out, it wouldn't matter. The smell would be there forever. So they're just going to dump the fridge and get a new one. So we didn't even bother. Like, I opened it up briefly to see if it was something we could clean. And there's a breakdown that happens in rot, basically, where when food starts to rot, you'll initially get that garbage or death smell. There's a stage beyond that where whenever it starts to break down even further, it changes to raw sewage. I opened up the fridge for about a half a second, and that's the smell that I got was raw sewage. There was so much food packed into that fridge so tightly that whenever you close the door, there wouldn't be a quarter of an inch between the food itself and the inside racks of the door. And it was the same with both the fridge and the freezer. So the only things we didn't clean in here was the fridge and the inside of the oven, mainly because the inside of the oven just wasn't that bad. They'll have to hire a deep cleaner no matter what before somebody else moves in, but we eliminated 100% of the smell. We got everything sanitized. They'll just need to get somebody in there to do the really good detail type stuff. What we're doing after we pick up the trash is we're going to clean everything off with Mr. Clean, and then we're going to follow that up with my sanitizing APC. And that basically just boils down to 70% isopropyl alcohol and maybe 6 drops of dish soap. People often ask me what the dish soap is for. It's not really meant to be a cleaner. It just helps the alcohol stick to surfaces a little bit better. Now, if you haven't watched videos in a while or you're new to the channel, you may be wondering who that super hot chick is who's working with me. That's my assistant, Kristen, and here's some pictures she took of herself in full makeup and her hair done. She doesn't normally look this good, but she knew she was going to be on camera, so she dolled herself up. She is, however, married and has a full-ass family, so leave her alone. While you guys are watching us clean this stuff out, let me invite you over to MidwestMagicCleaning.com, where we have 4 brand new t-shirts. We have "Shut Up, You Stupid Moose." We also have, oh look, more laundry. We have a brand new one, which is Cabinet Wolves. And then we have a nutritional value one that you probably want to look at a little bit closer because it's not what you think. I call it awesome sauce, but you can call it what you want. Also, all the cleaning rags that you see us using in this video, those come straight from my shop as well. I sell microfiber, ultra fine microfiber, honeycomb, all the professional stuff you've seen us using here, I also sell. That's one of the ways we support the channel and one of the reasons that I'm able to employ 2 people. But the absolute best way that you can support the channel is just click the subscribe button, like right now. That's free. If you're new to YouTube, subscribe just means you're telling YouTube, hey, I want to see more from this channel. And at last check, we are at 867,000 subscribers, so we are on the downhill slope to 1 million. Once I hit 1 million subscribers, I will never ask you to subscribe ever again. And if you know anybody who likes cleaning channels or just kind of a weirdo dude who cleans up weird extreme messes, let him know about the channel and have them subscribe too, or else. That's what you have to tell them that. You're like, hey, subscribe to this channel, or else. And if they ask you what or else means, then you just go silent. I like to follow it with a gazing stare, but you do whatever you want. As long as they subscribe, I don't care how you get them to do it. Now we're finally going to start the chemical cleaning part of this, and I'm only going to use 2 things to clean the majority of this stuff. It's Mr. Clean or whatever, emulsifier or degreaser you want to use. Then I follow that up with my APC that I mentioned earlier that's just basically alcohol and soap. One thing to point out, I'm very careful around the fish tanks. I have had aquariums since I don't even know how long. I don't have any now, but I've had dozens over the years, including building a 700-gallon indoor pond in my house years ago. I'm very, very good at them, and I know how to clean around them without, putting the fish in danger. But yeah, cleaning this is just a 2-step process. We're going to get the initial layer of crud off. Normally, I start with just a dry microfiber to get all the loose crap off. Then I follow that with Mr. Clean because that's my personal favorite. I'm not sponsored by them. I just like it. I basically like the way it smells. That's going to get the sticky stuff off that couldn't be dry wiped. And then after that, now the surface is exposed, so I could follow it up with my sanitizing APC. Whenever you use a sanitizer, 90% alcohol is not better than 70% alcohol. I see that as kind of a thing that pops up every once in a while where people think, well, if 70 does really well, I can use 91% alcohol and it will do even better. It doesn't work better because you need a certain amount of water content in the alcohol so that it doesn't immediately evaporate off and lose its potency. The other part is that germs will ingest the water, so they need a certain amount of water content in order to ingest that water while at the same time ingesting the alcohol that's attached to it. Then they basically explode from the inside out. That's basically how my mom passed away. Don't say anything. My mom would laugh at that joke. She was a very dark humor type of person, so my mom would love it. But anyway, yeah, 70% is way, way better than 90%. If you only have 90 or 91% isopropyl alcohol, what you can do is dilute that with about 20% water, roughly. It doesn't have to be exact. But when you do spray that on, you're going to want it to sit there for about 2.5 minutes before you start wiping. That way it's got time to do its thing. If you don't have either percent alcohol, what you can do is just punch the germs until they explode, which is how my dad passed. Now, the sink was in my top 10 worst sinks that I've done. It wasn't the worst by far, but it was in the top 10 pretty easily. So I don't think they did dishes maybe ever. The few pieces of silverware that were in the sink were rusted. Some of them were stuck to the bottom. The cabinets were also full of plastic silverware. And when I pulled the pans from the sink at the beginning of this video, about 100,000 fruit flies came out of there. It was pretty disgusting. There was a bunch of food and stuff that had solidified in the bottom of the sink and turned black. It looked like a lot of that was ramen noodles that had just kind of almost liquefied over time and then formed a black sludge and then dried in place. So what I'm going to do is something that looks a little disgusting. After I'm done scraping the sink, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run dishwater. I'm going to use about a cup of Mr. Clean, and then I'm going to use a pretty good dose of Dawn dish soap. I'm going to run it just like dishwater, and then I'm going to throw in all the stuff from the stove, all the little grease catchers and the electric burners and the little brackets that go on them. I'm going to throw that right in there because those things had so much burn on food that and the sink both needed time to soak. What I ended up doing is washing off those things and then putting them to the side and then spraying them down with Mr. Clean and sanitizing them by hand after I was done with the sink. So they get washed twice. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because otherwise it looks like I'm washing those things in the nastiest sink ever without cleaning the sink first. That's kind of what I'm doing, but that's not the end result. So after that sat for a while, basically I had to use a scraper and then just a scouring pad, or it's actually called a scratchless scouring pad or a scratchless scrub pad, and then using a ton of dish soap and elbow grease, and then I end up following that up with Barkeeper's Friend and then my sanitizing spray. The stove was done the same way except without the Barkeeper's Friend. So I used Mr. Clean, a little bit of dish soap. I used that scratchless pad. The underside of the stove, this is one of the few that I actually lifted the hood up on. You'll notice I cleaned that here in just a few, or maybe I already have. Who knows? I'm narrating blind, son. There's some stuff on the underside that I don't get quite clean, and it's not debris and it's not food, it's rust. Now, I could have gotten that out with some CLR, but again, this is not a thing that I'm looking to get perfect. I'm looking to get much, much better so a deep cleaner can go in and do those things. So I just wanted it to look good, to get all the nastiness off, and to be sanitized. But I'm not worried about rust spots. One interesting thing that I've never ran into in a house before is that once we picked up all the garbage and we got everything swept up, I don't believe that an N95 mask was really necessary. It was a bit of overkill. I don't think that this place was toxic by any means. However, there were so many fruit flies and so many gnats in here that we basically kept those things on just to prevent those from going up our nose and into our mouths. They were so thick. I'm sure you'll see some on camera buzzing by, but in real life, they were just nonstop everywhere. This is one of my favorite sink cleanings because it's such a dramatic change. If you've never used Barkeeper's Friend before and you have a stainless steel sink, I would suggest picking some up. You can get it at Walmart, and it's so cheap that you'll swear they've mislabeled it, like they've accidentally mispriced it. The only thing is if you use it the same way as Comet, even though they're not even close to the same chemical. They're like polar opposite chemicals. Comet is basically like a bleach-based product, or at least the kind I get. Barkeeper's Friend is oxalic acid. And so you want to wet down the sink, and then while it's still a little bit wet, sprinkle a whole bunch of Barkeeper's Friend on it, and then immediately start scrubbing that in circles. You don't want it to sit on there for a long time because it is acidic and it's reacting with that actual stainless steel sink. But once you get it all scrubbed in circles, it's making kind of a paste, and then rinse it off right away, wipe it down. I usually follow it up with a cleaner like my APC just to make sure I get all the residue off, because you can rinse all day and for whatever reason, you can never quite get all the residue off. So I give it a second cleaning with my APC. And then the big thing is I finish it off with a dry, ultra fine microfiber cloth. Those feel more like polyester. They're slick. And I don't even know if polyester is the right material. It's just, it doesn't feel like microfiber. It feels more like a really thick satin. But you use that dry and it's more like a polishing cloth, and that's what makes it shine. And that's what I use on mirrors, glass, windows, stovetops, anything that shines. I use an ultrafine microfiber to dry it off, and that gets rid of streaks entirely. Those are actually my number one selling product on MidwestMagicCleaning.com. I'll have a link to that in the description of this video, but just look for ultrafine microfiber glass cloth. One thing, if you do buy those, they are not edible. Do not try to eat them. Ultrafine microfiber is not for eating. They're just for drying off stuff and polishing. In fact, don't eat any of the things that I sell on MidwestMagicCleaning.com because none of them are edible. They're all like fabric, and some things are paper, like a calendar that I've got. There's a coffee mug, also not edible, though you can put stuff in it that is edible and eat out of it. I can't stop you from doing what you're going to do, but I can at least warn you. The toilet was disgusting, but not uncleanable. I just put toilet cleaner in there the second we walked into that house, and then did the whole rest of the house so that had time to sit and do its trick. Otherwise, I used about 10 different rags on this. You'll see me wiping down the toilet seat and the back of the toilet and the different parts, and it's going to look like I'm using the same rag. Every time you see me disappear off camera really quick or change positions, that's me stopping to get another rag. So I think I went through about 10. When you do the initial wipe down on a toilet like this, you can do it all with one rag because who cares? You're going to clean it 2 or 3 more times anyway. But I do that the same way that I do the rest of the house. I use just a quick and dirty wipe down to get the crud off. Then I go over it again with Mr. Clean and give that a more detailed wipe down. Then when the surfaces are bare and free of debris, that's when I use my APC to sanitize the whole thing. So technically that thing is getting cleaned 3 times. And yes, that is necessary because if you see the bottom of the underside of the toilet lid, how nasty that is, you don't want to wipe that off and then start wiping the rest of the toilet with that nasty rag that you just created. It's bleh, bleh. I'm not showing the bathtub because the bathtub was actually pretty clean. It was boring. I just sprayed it down with Mr. Clean, quick wipe down, and bam, that was done. The sink and mirror, however, I needed to do a little bit of scrubbing on that. There was a bunch of cat hair on that, and that did take some elbow grease. The last thing we always do is the floors, and these were a little bit harder than a regular average everyday household floor that doesn't have cat poop all over it and mountains of trash. So we're going to sweep everything up first. If we had a vacuum with us, we would have used that on this floor after we got done sweeping it because there was just a lot of small debris that was hard to deal with. Then Kristen is going to go back over that and spot clean it with Mr. Clean and or APC just to get the stains out. Then we're going to mop this whole thing with a Bona mop. That's my favorite thing to use on hardwood or tiles. It's more expensive than your everyday mop, but it just does such a better job because it's got a microfiber towel that you can put over the bottom of it. And then when that gets dirty, you just peel that off and throw another one on there. So I always take one with me with like 5 different pads. I can tell you that I was really, really happy with the way this one turned out, especially since once we got the trash done and we got the initial wipe down done of the counters, 100% of that smell was just gone. Because anytime you enter a house like this, especially one with a lot of trash and that had pets in it, it's always going to have a funky smell. And there are some houses that we do that we can't get rid of the smell. It's just in the fibers of the carpets and in the fibers of the wood flooring. It's in the insulation of the house, and you just can't get rid of it without gutting it. This one was the opposite. As soon as we wiped it down, bam, it was good to go. I never think to promote these things, but if you haven't followed me on TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, links to all three of those things will be in the description of this video. I'm going to start having Allison and Kristen do some occasional lives while we're goofing around. That would be sometimes just one or both or all three of us, where we just hang out with people, maybe while we're doing some orders, or maybe sometimes even when they just get bored and feel like talking to people. That's going to happen on Facebook and occasionally on TikTok, but my Instagram is my personal Instagram. That's linked in the description as well. And you can see lots of pictures of me, videos of me doing stupid stuff, lots of pictures of Moose, because Moose turns out to be really photogenic and weird. And I catch him doing weird stuff all the time. But be sure to give me a follow on all that other stuff. But the most important one is to hit the subscribe button on this one. All that said, members, I will see you this Wednesday with a new live or a new video. Everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.